Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be showing you my Fire King deck profile that I recently won locals with. Just wanted to play the deck for the first time, given its first sort of iteration after the structure decks. It's really fun to play with and it was impressively powerful for how simple the deck can be. Just wanted to get used to the cards, get used to the interactions, especially we've got a whole year of this deck most likely ahead of us, so I wanted to kind of get ahead of the curve and try it out. I was really impressed with how the deck performed. It was only a 20-player locals, but I just thought I'd showcase the deck profile that I played, some of the theory craft that I was testing with ahead of the sort of first week or two since its release, and then what I'll do at the end is sort of explain some simple little end boards you can do, so stick around. And if you really want to see some cool gameplay with this deck, or the Fire King deck in action, I've got 3 to 4 videos lined up over the next couple of days, so if you want to see some gameplay with this deck in action, subscribe, like, all that good stuff. I also shared my list in a picture format on my community tab, so if you want to see that and take a screenshot and just use it as a template going forward, absolutely feel free to do so. I just wanted to make a video just explain the deck and go in a bit more depth. So without further ado, I think we'll just get straight into it. Again, if you want to see some gameplay, I've got quite a few videos lined up next couple of days, so keep an eye out for those. So the deck itself is actually fairly standard. What I do is normally at the end go over any changes that I'd make. So if you stay to the end, there's a couple of changes that I think I'd make in this first iteration of me playing the deck. So just keep an eye out for that at the end. But we'll get straight into it. So for engine, 3 Ponics. This card's actually really solid. So obviously level 1 fire, which is very relevant for the Sinful Spores cards. Fantastic normal summon, gives itself natural follow-up, so it's everything you want for a starter card. 2 Garunics, I see some people playing 3, some people playing 1. I think 2 is optimal because you don't really want to brook in this card because it's once per turn. Some lines I like to do is when I add it to my hand and purposely use the effect in hand to play around cards like DD Crow and Bell. So I think this card is probably fine at 2. And sometimes like opening it's like really strong, but to be honest, I think 2 is like perfect for the decks. It's searchable. Once it's in a grave, it keeps coming back. So yeah, I'm happy with 2. 3 are probably the best cards in the deck, which is Kirin. When I first read these cards, I was like, oh, yeah, it's just another Shavara-esque card. But I think this card is actually insanely powerful because of the disruption it provides, and obviously the follow-up provides as well. Being able to sort of loop back resources, summon this back, trigger this effect, and then get pop. It just gives you so much advantage. So I think this card's fantastic. 3 Avata. I'd love to play the Fire Formation Tenki. However, Droll is a glaring issue with this deck, and I don't really want to play any more copies than this, other than the fact that it's a fire in hand, which can be really relevant. Obviously the effect on field is really good, and then the effect on graves really good as well. So yeah, fantastic card. I'm not really going to explain the engine too much. I think everyone should sort of know what these cards do. So yeah, pretty standard for the engine. Obviously the bronze pretty necessary, especially as a 1-of as well. I played 3 Fenrir and the Rise. I think this engine is pretty solid in the deck, especially adding a fire, which can be really relevant. Especially when you have Island up, being able to pop a fire and then trigger all your effects in graveyard, or just the Garunix in general is really strong. Plus as well, if you have a very niche hand, you can special summon this and make a Abyss Dweller, which is obviously really strong in the mirror, and it's very strong as Tia, Unchained, and then obviously this deck's really relevant post Banlist. So yeah, any sort of graveyard strategies this sort of card is really good against. So you just literally just summon Fenrir, then obviously special this, and then not use the effects, and simply just get either Brong or Avata, and then just make a rank 4. It's pretty solid. 2 Islands, 3 Sanctuary, and then I played 2 Skybones. So I was actually not using Circle in my first iteration of the build, but after playing locals with it for the first time and playing a lot more with it online, I found this card to be very useful. So what I'd probably do in the future is simply swap 1 for 1. Although I think Skyburn is an insanely strong card, because obviously it's a searchable disruption. It's literally Salmon Great Rage, and it gives you follow-up and just further disruption as well. This card in itself, sometimes I like to wait for my opponent to commit. I like to play really patiently with this deck, because if you have like a Kieran, if you're able to pop a Kieran off this, that can potentially be up to 2. Just if you have like a Ponix and a Kieran on field, which is quite achievable in a game 1 or turn 1 end board. You can obviously wait for your opponent to commit loads of cards to the field, and then pop 2, and then trigger Kieran Engrave, pop another card, and if you potentially summon back an Arvata as well, that's a monster negate on the field. So yeah, this card is, like, for me, the main disruption in the deck, but I found that I barely used the second one. It was nice to sort of search out, but I feel like this deck can OTK really quickly, so you don't really need the second one necessarily. But yeah, this card's fantastic though. I think this card's really good. And then for the Simple Spores, again, this deck this isn't necessarily budget friendly, but honestly, I'll be honest, you can kind of just play the Nadir package, Dogmatica engine. It doesn't play nicely into draw, however, it is as good as, in my opinion. It's absolutely fine. So especially you can play obviously Maximus, and Maximus has loads of targets like Entis. You can play the Ash Dragon, the Dogmatica Ash Dragon, to search Fleur de Lis. So you have Maximus on field, so in Fire Kings, and then you have a Fleur de Lis in hand, which is really strong. Obviously, it doesn't pair well into draw. However, this engine is it's pretty nice. So I have it, so why not play it? If you want to see a budget deck profile, I'm happy to showcase one instead. But in this iteration, it's fairly not budget. But Prosperity, I don't know how this card didn't get hit on the ban list. I'm still pretty shocked, but it's a 3, so we're going to play 3. Honestly, I'll be honest with you, if I show my non-engine as well, which was just Troll, Ash, and then 3 Impim, a lot of times I would actually side this out going second, because there aren't too many targets you want to dig for going second, other than the fact that obviously we play like some blowouts on the side for certain matchups. But because you're drawing an extra card going second, it makes the math work out, so you shouldn't break necessarily. And because obviously we're still technically in a hand trap format, even because the ban list is in effect till January, so I thought I'd just keep playing hand traps and then just use this primarily as a go first card to dig out engine if needed, and then obviously blow out non-engine such as Droll, which is obviously very strong when you go first as well as second. So yeah, that's pretty much for the deck. So 40 cards, nice and clean. And then what we'll do is just do the side deck, and then we'll do the extra deck. So for the sides, played Callby, 2 Storm. So Callby obviously going first, and then obviously these are back row hate cards. Can be necessary in some matchups such as Sprite. I think it's like Runic decks as well, it's not too bad. 3 Talents. I think this card's insane in the mirror, going first and second because of the fact Kieran's main phase only. And obviously going first, this card always comes in against decks that you'd expect to hand trap you, because this card's phenomenal in hand trap formats. To be honest, this side deck is very built for locals, to be honest. I expect some Rescue Ace, so I'm going to put the Veilers in. DD Crow hits sort of Unchained tier decks, purely. And obviously Nib, naturally, I do just play this card going first because it's really tough for your opponent to play through your board in under 5 summons. So yeah, just a fairly cookie cutter side deck, but obviously this would be built ideally for your tournament. I always say that to people, just don't really look at side decks online, just look at what you're trying to play in a tournament and build your side deck for it. For the extra, SP, access code, and obviously have the Celine stuff as well. I think SP is probably the most summoned card. Honestly, I just barely summoned the Sunlight Wolf and the Heat Soul. I just barely use these cards. It came up in niche scenario, but honestly, I'm just trying to play around Droll as much as possible. This obviously is necessary for disruption on your opponent's turn. And then we have all the Charmers, such as Dark, Heater, Link Karibo, IP. I sometimes end on those cards, especially game 1, because game 1 I'm playing around Nib. But I think this card's pretty decent to end on as a end board-esque. Like this plus a Fire King with Kieran in hand is pretty strong. Then we have the Typhon, the Underworld Goddess Sting, Dweller for the Rise Heart summon, and then obviously Zeus. So Zeus necessarily is just talents taking monsters and making XYZ, but yeah, honestly a lot of these cards didn't come up. Typhon comes up, obviously the Charmers come up, the Garunix comes up, the XYZ, and obviously Access Code when you're killing people. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the extra deck. So I think that is pretty much it for the deck profile. Again, if you want to see any more deck profiles, like a budget version, let me know in the comments. Happy to do that. But yeah, so in terms of like an end board, so ideally it's something like really basic like this, where you just have essentially just obviously like 5 your island setup, maybe like one or two hand traps, and then this is like your grave. Your opponent tries to play, doing like Skyburn, pop this, pop a card, trigger your Garunix, that summons back out, and then obviously effect to destroy, which then triggers your Kirin, which you get to pop another card, and then that summons back your Avatar. So you just pop 2 cards and got a monster negate, essentially, off a little mini board, and then you still have follow up, and you have potentially some hand traps as well. So yeah, I played the deck really conservative. If you check out my videos, you kind of get to see how I sort of play the deck, really slow, but just utilising the fact that I'm playing a little bit more non-engine in the side deck, especially like game 1 trying to play around Nib, game 2 I'm just trying to play really conservative, and you utilise the fact that I have loads of non-engine in my deck, make a little mini board, and yeah, you can obviously search this card off Ponix in the follow-up if you already have Island as well. I'd like to test out this card a bit more. I think it's really niche, especially in this sort of game state. If you have like redundant monsters on the board, especially with the Kirin as well on board, being able to forcefully trigger your Kirin without using your island, just, you know, targeting this and a Ponix and just pop in and yeah, just getting crazy amount of advantage. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the deck profile, guys. Again, I've got a snippet of the deck on my community tab, but if you want to, you know, have any questions on it, just drop me a comment in the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.